Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is King.
Gloria, gloria, orgullo de la patria soberana luz. Que el oro es tu color, vida, vida, futuro de la patria
del pueblo español que vuelve a resurgir.
Púrpura y oro, bandera inmortal en tus colores, juntas caminar del sol. Púrpura y oro, querer y lograr, tú eres bandera, signo de mi mano. Y de España, te llevaré,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Today is July 31st, 2026, Anno Domini. And ladies and gentlemen, today is the return of Franco Friday. Now, I, like so many of you, watched those scenes from Spain yesterday. A border absolutely overrun by migrants, by the horde, the teeming masses of military-age males. How many more men have to come in? How many more murdered Spaniards? How many more raped Spanish women and daughters have to take place? We can all see the images. We all know what it means. We all know how terrible it is. But the question is, what is to be done about it? What are the men of the Christian West going to do about it? And it is up to the men of the Christian West. That is who all of this falls to. The men who are meant to protect their fatherland. The men who are meant to protect their homes, to protect their children, to protect their families. And there once was a man in Spain, and he saw what was happening to his country. He saw priests being murdered in the churches. He saw the nuns thrown upon the altars and raped and defiled, then shot in the head, and having their bodies and skeletons paraded in the town square. And the government gave it a wink and a nod and looked the other way. And that man and his friends said no more. And they said that they will not allow the people of Spain to be abused. They will not allow the sovereign nation of Spain to be destroyed, to be ripped asunder. There once was a man named Francisco. There once was a man named Francisco. He is a man that beat the communists so hard and so bad that even his own name, the invocation of his own name, is a criminal offense today in Spain. This episode that you're watching right now will be banned in Spain. It is illegal under current Spanish law to tell the truth about Generalissimo Francisco Franco. They'll say he fought a war. They'll say that it was a brutal war, and it was. But they'll never tell you what he was fighting against. And when I look and see the images from Spain, and when I look and see and know what's going to happen next to the people of Spain, to the daughters, to the children, it makes me think. It makes me think that this is exactly what happened almost 100 years ago. That caused a man named Francisco to rise up and take his country back. And this has happened before in Spain. The Reconquista, the Moors conquered all of Spain except for one province for 800 years. What did the Spanish do? They fought back and they won. And they pushed the Moors back out of Spain and they took their country back by any means necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Franco Friday to all who celebrate. Be right back. Jack Pacific.
In our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Pacific.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, folks, Jack Pacific back live here, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. And our next guest, I want to get on because, we've been talking economics. And of course, we want to get into this as we go into the midterms because we've been looking at the economic, these questions about cost of living, these questions about instability, these questions about the purchasing power of the dollar, all of these things, gas prices, all of it's coming up, and instability globally from Spain, of course, where this is the Strait of Gibraltar, by the way. So from the Strait of Gibraltar to the Strait of Hormuz, there are so many questions about the instability that's going on right now. So I want to bring on one of our favorite guests, of course, from Allegiance Gold, Alex Abkarian joins us now. Alex, how are you?
Jack, I couldn't hear the last part of the question. I'm well, thanks. How you doing?
I saw you messing with the IFB there. No, I just said, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Well, I have to say, and personally on air, and thank you for, we were talking about it, when it happened, but you guys stepped up and Allegiance Gold was able to come in when we were out there in Utah covering the hearing in the murder trial of Charlie Kirk's accused assassin. That it was we were on the X and we were in a hostile environment, and you guys stepped up and provided security for the Human Events crew while we were out there. And I just wanted to publicly thank you, deeply, deeply thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Tanya, and of course the kids, thank you as well. She was very worried about me being out there, but I felt that it was very important for me to be there. And just knowing that I had somebody watching my back that you guys took care of, it meant the whole world to us.
Of course, this is what the partnership is about, especially when security and protection is in our veins. So we get it. Well,
and it was interesting that you mentioned that, because thinking about what you do, it really is all about security, isn't it? Because it's just about it's about what you've accumulated, what you've worked so hard for. You work your fingers to the bone to provide for your family, or for yourself. You build things, and then maybe you have staff, maybe whatever different people's situation is. You want to protect those things as well. This is obviously directly. That's why they call it your livelihood, because it's tied to your life. And so it really is a big part of security, is to make sure that, hey, by the way, if something's going on with the U.S. dollar and you've got all your savings in dollars, you might not be as secure as you think. And for a lot of people, that's something that they've had to learn, something that there's a learning curve. It's certainly for myself. And I just really appreciate the way that you guys have provided that education as well.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in the trust business. Yes, we're a physical precious metals dealer, and anyone can provide gold and silver. But the relationship, the education, the transparency, thinking about the long term, and really taking the time and understanding why is this the right fit? Those are the tough questions that we have to ask, and that's the foundation of the relationship.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And so when we look at this, I want to reach out broader, because when we see again, the instability, talking about the Strait of Gibraltar here, now the instability all the way, of course, to the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb, the Red Sea, and then the Suez Canal is the northern strait of the northern mouth of the Red Sea, rather, on the Mediterranean, that it really raises questions about what's going to happen with the U.S. dollar. That's exactly what I was thinking of. So I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts on that, as it seems as this summer is turning hot, not just in the parks and in the summer sun, but also in terms of the markets and obviously in terms of warfare as well.
Absolutely. Look, we got a lot to talk about, but I want to start with a political angle. I think it's important. As we're headed to the midterms, and I talked about this, we're almost about 100 days away, because it's my wife's birthday is around the same time. We can't miss that day. So essentially what I was looking at is what's really happening on the left. Are they going to politicize the war? Are they going to politicize the budget, the inflation, all of that? But what's really concerning is that there was a survey done. It showed 2 out of 3 Democrats are really leaning on the socialistic side. Why is that important? Because if you depend on the government, and if the government is your sugar daddy, so to speak, you don't need to worry about security. You don't need to worry about protection, because that hand is given to you. You did not earn it. People that have worked hard and have the money that they've built, valuing what they have becomes a lot more important. It looks like we have a power outage here.
Yeah, you guys all right? You have you have you could if you have a light on your phone, that might I use that sometimes, but I can hear you okay.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
There you go. All right, so we're good. Yeah, see what I mean? Instability, folks. It can strike whenever you least expect.
and you got to roll with the punches, right? Because I can't complain to the LADWP saying, "Hey, you're ruining our interview," but we can make the best of it. So coming back to the point that I wanted to make is it's very simple. Because if you understand what's happening globally, if you understand that the battlefield is not in Iran alone, the bigger fight is against our wealth. It's against the petrodollar. And by the way, Jack, it's important to point this out. Not a lot of financial entertainers, I call them, talk about this. You've been ahead of this. You've been talking about the importance of petrodollar. This comes from your background, understanding the connection between military, navy, the dollar. Because if you ask the British what happened to them when they were the supreme naval power, well, guess what happened? We took over and their currency is no longer relevant. Now the dollar is under attack. A few years ago, Iran started this concept of, I want to start accepting non-dollars for my oil. Guess who stepped up? The Chinese yuan stepped up. So now we have this little by little movement away from the petrodollar. People need to understand the basic math. Do you know how many barrels of oil we use a day?
On a single day, shoot. I used to have this number. It's like 60 billion. No, 60 million.
So we have about 100 million a day. Okay.
100 million. I was
and
close.
If you multiply that by the number of days, that's about almost 37 billion a year. If you take today's oil price at about $85, you're talking about roughly $3.5 trillion. The world needs oil. They got to pay in dollars. So our dollars in circulation is important. Why? Because we need it. We need to borrow, and we need people to use it so that way our cost of borrowing is low. So make no mistake, don't think about that this is only about nuclear, this is only about controlling the Middle East. This is about protecting the dollar. And if we lose the dollar, it's going to impact everyone, whether you're on the left, you're on the right, we're in the middle, whether you have a lot of money or you don't even have a lot of money. And the effect of that will be tremendous. You'll have economic setbacks, you have currency setbacks, and we can't even borrow as much. Look at what's happening to Japan.
We need to reconnect with Alex right there.
The airwaves can't handle it.
We'll pop him up. As soon as we can, we'll reconnect. But Alex, of course, was saying is that, so I'm up, and do we have Alex? Guys, is Alex there? Okay, one sec, we'll get him back. But folks, this is why it's so important to take a look at places like Allegiance Gold, where they can go and when all of this is happening, when all the instability is happening, when all these things are going on, you can go and look at your finances. You can go and look at a way to perhaps, just perhaps, try something different to actually work with your savings. And that's why we've set up and established protectwithposo.com. And, I don't do the hard sales on here for this, but if you want to check it out, you can just go and look at protectwithposo.com and you can see the free information that's right there. And Alex, hey, Alex, did we get you back there?
Yeah, we're back. We're back and stronger.
We are so back, man. They're telling me that was an entire network-wide hit. So I don't know if that was the Iranians, like the, what was it? One of the water supplies or something yesterday, or the grid, or maybe it was the Chinese, or who knows what. But the point of the matter is we're living in a time where we're seeing the collapse of complex systems. We're seeing threats from and pressures from abroad, and particularly on the U.S. system. And of course, the crux of the U.S. system is the U.S. dollar, the same way the pound was the crux of the British Empire. That's why the British pound is no longer the world reserve currency. And what you're saying is that the petrodollar acts as a de facto world reserve currency, and it's possible that status is currently being challenged. That's why protectwithposo.com exists. That's why we established this framework with Allegiance Gold to say, hey, if there's folks who are out there who are interested in that, they can look at it as well, and they can find it out.
Absolutely. That's why we're here. And speaking about the dollar, I think our listeners, our viewers have to look at a dollar bill, just like the one that I have. And what I have is the Jefferson. It's $2. It's my lucky $2. On top, it says Federal Reserve note. The word note is a debt instrument. Essentially, this is not backed by anything, okay? They can print this. They can do whatever they want with it. But when you have some of this, when you have something that cannot be printed, you're in control. Look, this is not going to make you wealthy overnight, because this in itself is wealth. This is why the central banks are hoarding gold. You look at China. China, for the first 6 months of the year, they had record imports. Their numbers are increasing. If you look at the BRICS nation, why are we talking about other nations? Because we have internal problems and we have external problems. And ask yourself this: what if one of them is not in your favor? What if the dollar continues to lose value? As a matter of fact, if I tell you the economic numbers, you're not going to like it. We had a 1.5% growth for last quarter. But the problem...
Exactly. Alex, we're coming up on a break, but because you and I, because we had these tech issues, let's hold you over. So we're going to do the break right now, right back. Human Events Daily, more with Alex Abkarian, the COO. And
these are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec, we are back live here on Human Events Daily. I wanted to get Alex Abkarian from Allegiance Gold back on here. He's been chatting about all of these pressures that are affecting the gold market, everything else, and affecting the gold market, the dollars, petrodollar, all of it, financial metals. And so, Alex, you were explaining something about the U.S. dollar when we last left. We had some tech difficulties. Want to give you a chance to be able to fix that up.
Yeah. So basically, if you look at a dollar bill, okay, the one that I have is Jefferson, $2, my lucky $2 bill. On top of it, it'll say Federal Reserve note. The word note is a debt instrument. Now, why is that important? It's important for us to understand that the dollar is not backed by anything. If you've been listening to the show, you already know this because Jack is ahead of this, has talked about the petrodollar and the currency reset. But what matters to you is this. If you have two problems, one internally, where inflation is outpacing the growth of our economy, and then another one externally, where the world doesn't want to buy too much of everything in dollars. So if anything happens to the value of the currency, at the end of the day, you're going to be the one who is holding that bucket. So the whole concept of gold is that because it cannot be printed, it holds its value. Whether you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, look, whatever your financial objectives are, gold has a place because the strong hand, the central banks, or even the Chinese government and their allies, because China learned we need numbers. There's power in strength. There's power in numbers. So we have this little by little movement towards the dollar, away from the dollar, I should say. Nothing's going to happen overnight. But if you think about the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years, what if one of the policies are not correct? What if there's been a delay in making the right adjustments? You don't want to be the one being affected. And that's where gold comes into play. Proactive way to preserve your buying power. If you have the right intention going in, you're not going to compare your gold to NVIDIA or Apple. You won't be disappointed because if you look at the numbers, historically, it's actually outperformed the S&P 500 index if you look at the last 20, 25 years. So with that being said, the first thing you got to do is understand what is the risk, things that I can control. You don't control inflation. You don't control what the Federal Reserve is going to do with the interest rates. They recently met. They're going to meet again in August in Jackson Hole and talk about the plan moving forward. But it is very evident to me that they want to change how inflation is calculated so they can support lowering the interest rates because we do have an affordability problem here in the States. And with President Trump's policy, the big, beautiful bill, deregulation, we are paying a short-term price for the long-term gain. But depending on your time horizon, maybe you cannot afford paying that short-term price. That's where you want to have some preservation and protection. And that's where gold comes into play.
And so in a situation like that, do you think that oil would ever potentially be traded for gold?
No. You know why? Because here in the U.S., although we have the largest amount of gold, and Scott Bessent recently mentioned that they had done an audit, I don't believe that they've done a thorough audit. It's one thing for you to do a visual inspection. It's another thing for you to look at each bar, make sure that the purity level is there. There's a report that in the next 3 to 5 years, China's gold will outpace what we have. So the way I see this is the currency will back. There has to be some sort of a percentage that will back the currency. Because even with Russia, China, India, all those countries, it's not that they trust each other. They trust the one thing that cannot be duplicated or printed. They trust the gold that's backing their bilateral trade agreements. So I do see gold being in the collateralization of the currencies in the future, but it's going to be difficult for the trading of oil and gold, vice versa.
So that's actually incredible because this is kind of it's tied to the rise of BRICS, and in many ways, you know, and obviously I've talked about this in the show as well. I think a lot of the president's moves lately have been directly tied to BRICS to try to combat that and put the United States on a secure footing.
Absolutely. Let's face it. President Trump wants to have a strong dollar, but he doesn't want to have too much of a strong dollar because that's going to hurt the exports. That's going to hurt the trade that we have with our partners. If the value of the dollar, the synthetic value based on the artificial demand because of the higher oil prices, look, the globe, the world needs dollars. No one's saying that the dollar is going to be replaced by something else. But what is happening is that it's losing its ground little by little. So the way we see things moving forward is that once the war stops, oil prices will be normalized. we're going to have the value of the dollar also drop, and that's where gold is going to make the pop. So the 4,000 pricing that we're seeing right now, it's going to be a price that you wish you paid for, because once you bought gold at 2,000, it's easy for you to say, I wish I had bought more. But the trajectory of gold in the next 3 to 5 years, even recently, UBS revised their forecast for next year. They're looking about 5,200. Other banks are looking anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000. So yes, gold is not intended to be that profit, but it has the potential, and the ingredients, the foundation that supported that are very, very ripe, and timing is great.
And so for folks, we've got Protect with Poso set up. For folks that are interested in learning more and checking it out, what would be the best way for them to just say, hey, you know what? I'm seeing all this. I'm seeing the price of gas. I'm seeing everything that's going on. What can I do? Where do I get started? This seems so complicated. What's the best step for them to take first?
The first step is have a conversation. That conversation is going to lead for you to do some work. You want to know what you have. If you don't have clarity, you're not going to be able to make a good decision. How can you get out of the way of the problem if you don't even understand the problem? So today, the intention is for people to understand, yes, we have the strongest military in the world. We have the reserve currency in the world. We have the best economy. But make no mistake, there is a lot of threats against that. So the same way you have to look at your portfolio. There are threats that you cannot control. The best thing you can do is learn and find out what would be an appropriate percentage for you to diversify. What's your time horizon? Look, I know when we worked with you and Tanya a few years back, at first there's this skepticism. Like, I know Wall Street, I know my bank, I know these financial institutions, but gold is almost a foreign language. The sooner you start learning about gold, the more you're going to say, I wish I learned, and I'm so glad I diversified. So first step is give us a call. Visit protectwithposo.com. That's protectwithposo.com. Or you can call 844-790-9191.
It's as simple as that. That's how to get started. Alex, thank you so much. And again, thank you for everything you did for us out in Utah.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Have a great weekend.
Absolutely. God bless. All right, right back, folks, with more.
Yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected, except worse. Much bigger, much easier to get into, despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do. But we didn't have that, forget it. We have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec, we're back. Human Events Daily. And folks, some weeks are nonstop. We got early mornings, you got late evenings, you got so much that is going on, those long hours on the road or in the studio. When your schedule looks like that, getting a good night's sleep, it's not a luxury, it's essential. If you're waking up hot, you're constantly tossing and turning, you're just feeling not rested, your mattress actually could be the problem. It's one of the reasons I switched to Ghost Bed. Every Ghost Bed mattress comes with built-in cooling technology, no expensive upgrade required. They're designed for hot sleepers, provide excellent support, and make a real difference when you've got long days ahead. And one thing I especially like is that Ghost Bed gives you 101 nights to try it in your own home. You're not making a decision after one night in a showroom. You get more than 3 months to see if it's right for you. And right now, they're also running their 4th of July sale, and Human Events viewers can save an additional 10% with promo code POSO. With financing, some Ghost Beds cost around $1 a day. Visit ghostbed.com/POSO and use promo code POSO to save even more. Right, you just saw the president there, of course, giving his comments on of course, the situation in Spain. I want to bring on now Andrew Day, the senior editor of the American Conservative. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
No, happy to do it. And look, I think that when you see things like Spain and you look at so many things out there, it's when I see something like this, people want to complicate it. And it's actually not a complicated situation, is it? The answer is right in front of us. It's very, very simple. This is the type of thing that a military is designed for. The only difference, of course, is that, of course, the Spanish socialists are telling the military to stand down.
Absolutely. I mean, if these migrants who overwhelmed this border at Ceuta had met a military instead of a bunch of aid workers, the situation would be very different. They would have been deterred from overrunning the border, obviously. And really, I agree with you. The situation is so simple. It's so straightforward, but you have to see what's in front of your nose, if I can use that phrase. This should be a wake-up call. It should be a wake-up call for liberals throughout the Western world, in Europe and in the United States, that they need to get out of this frame of understanding these kinds of events as poor migrants and refugees and people seeking asylum who we need to help. No, this is at the very least hybrid warfare, okay, or an invasion. That's what's going on. We grew up in Western civilization. We inherited it. We want to be able to pass it on to our kids. But if this keeps on happening, we're not going to be able to do that. It should also be a wake-up call for conservatives, including America First conservatives here in the United States, that our situation is connected with the one in Europe. We're facing the same kinds of problems. That's why whenever right-wing populism is rising in Europe, it's also rising in America. Right-wing populists in America and Europe elect new leaders. You know, these parties are rising. They're gaining in popularity because the people are worried about these migrant invasions. They want it to stop. They want their leaders to actually do something. And I think it should also be a wake-up call that the Iran war, for example, in particular, is a distraction. That's destroying our national power. That's making it more difficult for us to compete with China. It's not solving our problems. The actual problems are right here within our borders in America, and also, as we see on the screen, in Europe as well.
Well, you know, it's interesting you mention that, because I just got back from speaking at CPAC UK, and you know I've done CPACs in Hungary and Poland and Romania and other CPAC style events, Japan even, and folks say, why are you going to these other countries? Don't you say you're America first? I am America first, right? But the point is that I also want England to be England first, and Poland to be Poland first, and Japan to be Japan first, right? That's what it's all about. And in fact, the issue is that I've done a CPAC in Mexico, believe it or not, because what we're actually fighting against is all the same thing, is a globalist takeover. And they're the ones who are trying to get us. And I was on with Steve Bannon on War Room this morning, and he was saying, why do we have aircraft carriers in the Middle East? Why aren't we sending them off the coast of Spain, which is a NATO country where we have a mutual defense treaty through NATO? This is obviously a situation that could trigger Article 5. We have Rota right there, which of course is a Navy base, and yet we don't seem to care about it whatsoever.
Totally. I absolutely agree. And, you mentioned America First and this perceived conflict between America First and Western civilizational thinking. That conflict doesn't exist. I have this book in front of me, Patrick Buchanan, Death of the West. He was a co-founder of the magazine at which I work.
Yes, exactly.
Conservative. And if you look at the history of American First conservatism, going back from Charles Lindbergh through Pat Buchanan, all the way up to even like Tucker Carlson and some other figures today, they were America First. And they also did think of America as part of this Western civilization. And where did we get our concept of citizenship? We got it from Roman law, right? UK, British common law also played a big role. I mean, the list goes on and on. I live in DC, where the architecture is clearly influenced by Greco-Roman antiquity. We are in a cultural zone of Western civilization. That is what America is. So if you're America First, if you love America, then you love a Western country. That's what we are. And there's no conflict at all. And yeah, we want the British First people, the France First people, the Spanish First people to succeed. We support their movements in solidarity. I think that we have to, because all of these things are connected.
No, it is. And I've gone, and so when I wrote my anti-communism book on humans last year, or excuse me, 2 years ago now, gosh, time flies, that I actually went and traveled to Spain and met with the leaders of Vox, which is sort of the anti-migrant, MAGA, cognate party over there, certainly the Spanish First kind of party, and, visited many sites around Madrid that were tied to the Spanish Civil War. And you could clearly see that the things that they were fighting for were the exact same things that we were fighting for in the United States. And it's very interesting. And so this is why I think, and it's also a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of establishment Republicans to say, this is what the MAGA movement, the America First movement was built on. And for folks who really want to focus everything, especially in an election year, on foreign policy, on whether or not, the next round of bombings is going on with Iran, or is there a deal, is there not a deal? It's just not an animating factor for the people of the United States. Obviously, in Spain, their government's completely against it. But the point is, in the United States, that's not something that directly affects people on a visceral level the way this does.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Trump's election victory in 2024, the most important issues, as far as I could tell, were one, migration, because the border was just chaotic under Biden, then affordability, and then Trump's promise to avoid World War III, not get us sucked into any forever wars, especially not forever wars in the Middle East, because Americans have seen how disastrous such wars can be. And what do we have now? We have this war in Iran. President Trump, I think, was convinced by Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, that it was only going to last for a few weeks, maybe even a few days, and we were going to get a new regime there that wasn't hostile to the United States. That didn't happen. And so Trump needs to just get out, because not only did it affect his campaign promise to not start these foreign wars in the Middle East, it also affects the affordability issue, because it sends up gas prices. It's creating this oil shortage that has real consequences, especially in the United States, because all of our consumer goods, our groceries, are delivered on 18-wheeler, tractor trailer trucks, right, on highways across this vast country. Those run on diesel.
Yeah, no,
so it contributes
I was just
to a
at
general inflation.
Well, to your point, I was just at the White House yesterday where we had this big truckers event, and he's putting, which I think is a great policy, by the way, putting American veterans ahead of anyone else in terms of CDLs for truckers, which is a great policy. The problem is that obviously we have this issue of migrants on our roads and driving these big rigs. But the bigger issue, of course, is going to be the price of oil and the price of gas.
Yeah, totally. And that's been hit hard. And if this war doesn't get wrapped up soon, I mean, the problem is just going to fester and even get worse. I mean, we're seeing signs of a wider war and regional conflagration stemming out of this Iran war. If the Houthis get involved in a more major way and shut off Red Sea traffic, that's going to be a disaster for the oil markets, and things are going to go even higher up. Our strategic reserves are depleted. China was kind of, for their own reasons, bailing the world out in terms of manipulating their imports so that the price of oil didn't rise too much when the war was extremely hot. We don't know if they're going to continue to do that. So we could be heading towards some real major oil crisis, the likes of which we haven't seen since at least the 70s. We need to avoid that if at all possible. I understand it's difficult for Trump right now to find an off-ramp. I think he knows that the war wasn't worth it. The American people, 2/3 of the American people say that the war wasn't worth it. Even MAGA voters are turning against it, or are at least worried about higher prices and about ground troops. It's good to just come home now, I think. I think the situation will kind of sort itself out naturally. Iran can't charge these exorbitant fees on the Strait of Hormuz, because then the infrastructure for transporting oil is just going to go to other ground locations and move away from Hormuz. It's a diminishing asset in that sense. So I think the situation would basically work itself out. But if the war escalates, then I think Trump's poll numbers are going to see an even bigger hit. I mean, this war is already dragging him down to the 30s, and we're going to see the oil prices go up heading into the midterms. And so I think Trump should get out. And we should also note that this war is distracting and dividing the American right. So we have the situation now in Susa with these images.
And just to dig in, is that this is the initial, it was the original issue of the MAGA movement. Your border, defending your border. That's what Trump came down the escalator. That's the first thing he said, the first thing that united everyone behind him. Andrew Day, we'll get you on for longer for next time. Until then, where can people follow you?
I'm at The American Conservative. You can also follow me online. AKDay89 is my handle, and I write a weekly column at The American Conservative.
All right, folks, check him out. Right back. Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily.
We're going to call this the Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily. Folks, every day, more of our personal information ends up online than most people realize. Your name, your home address, your phone number, family members, old addresses, email addresses, even information from past data breaches is often just a few clicks away. Hundreds of data broker websites collect and publish that information, and unless you take action, it stays there. Someone with bad intentions can use those details to piece together where you live, who you're related to, and other personal information. If you're politically active, you work in the media, or simply value your family's privacy, it's worth taking seriously. That's where Patriot Protect comes in. Patriot Protect works to remove your personal information from data broker websites before the wrong people can use it. Instead of waiting until after you become a victim, they can help you make it harder to find in the first place. A single phone scam or identity theft incident can cost thousands of dollars. Protecting yourself is a lot less expensive. Go to patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO to save 15%. Take control of your privacy, add some digital camouflage to your life, and make yourself much harder to find online. All right, very excited to bring on our next guest. We've been friends for a minute now, and I believe we haven't had her on the show before, which is much to my chagrin. But we're getting her on now. It's Spanish activist Ada Luch joins us. Ada, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
And you're coming in. You're in Barcelona right now. Yeah. Tell us the situation from your view. How are the people of Spain reacting to these horrific images happening on your southern border?
I think we are finally waking up, which makes me super, super happy. I have to say the Spanish people have been very complacent for way too long, but this has been the overtone moment. And everyone is angry, everyone is furious. Even left-wing people are furious at Pedro Sánchez. They are already starting to organize themselves to go on the streets and finally do something about it, because this is outrageous and infuriating.
And it's something that's so horrific, because when you look at it, and I've been to Spain. Spain is a beautiful country, and it's amazing to see. It's been so well preserved. The history, the culture, the heritage, the churches. It's an amazing, beautiful country. Why does it seem like your Pedro Sánchez and the government there are okay with it being destroyed like this?
Actually, I would say that they are happy that our country is getting destroyed like this. Pedro Sánchez is a corrupt person that he knows he's going to go to jail the second he leaves power. So he's going to do everything in his power to never leave power. So that's why he's importing all of these hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of illegal migrants to Spain, because he doesn't see them as people. He sees them as boats. For himself is only boats. So yeah, he's happy about it. He's not doing anything. He didn't close the border. He's not allowing the police even to arrest them. They took over Ceuta and Melilla completely. And he's going to do everything in his power to bring as many people as possible until the next elections next year.
So the elections aren't until next year. Yeah. What's going to happen? If this isn't turned back, what's going to happen to the people of Spain? Because this isn't just the first time that he's been doing this over and over. He's letting people out of the jails. He's been allowing illegal immigrants to become naturalized citizens of Spain, which I don't think people realize. To me, I'm just going to say it. Pedro Sánchez does not look like a prime minister. To me, he looks like a criminal.
He is a criminal, yes. He just regularized over 1 million illegal migrants. The official number is 500,000, but it's 1,300,000 illegal migrants, because he's trying to give as many passports as possible. Actually, our passport is getting devaluated so fast. We just came outside of the Schengen area just today. They are trying so hard. I think Italy already said that we are out of the Schengen area to go to Italy. Because for him, it doesn't matter, like our passport doesn't matter. Like he just wants to give as many as possible so these people can vote.
So what you're saying is that this is actually an electoral plan for him, because he knows his coalition government is it's not very popular. But what he's able to do then is he's bringing in voters that will then vote for him, because he wants to dilute and replace the voters of the Spanish people.
Absolutely. Actually, there's another left-wing politician. Her name is Irene Montero. She's not from the Socialist Party, but it's also an extremist left-wing party. And she said that she wishes to replace us, right-wing Spaniards, for migrants, because they deserve to be in our country and we don't. She actually said that, which is pretty crazy to me. So absolutely, this is all an orchestrated invasion, I would say, and I'm not sure how it's going to end up or how we are going to fix this in a peaceful way.
Well, just tell me this. You're living there, you're in Barcelona, you're a woman living in Barcelona. How does this affect you when you're living in one of Spain's most beautiful cities? Is it affecting the safety? Is it affecting the public life? What's the impact that this mass migration is having?
Absolutely. I would say that we see many consequences because of mass migration, but the safety is the number one. As you guys probably have seen, we are no longer safe in Europe, especially women. We are getting raped, molested, and in many cases even assassinated because of open borders. But it's not only this, the problem that we are seeing, because you guys know we have public health, public education system, and everything is getting collapsed because of this mass migration. So, for example, our grandparents that have been working all of their lives, paying taxes, and they don't even have access to public health. They have to wait 2-3 years to get basic surgeries because those people are coming in and taking advantage of all of our resources, and they are being prioritized, which is very frustrating, if I'm being honest.
Well, and that's so horrific. So if this is happening, what's going on in the country where if this is happening to the people of Spain, rape, sexual assault, molestation in the streets, on buses, are the politicians responding in any way? When I hear Pedro Sanchez speak, it sounds like he just wants to open the borders even more.
Exactly. So we only have one really good party in Spain. That's the Vox party. They are taking it really seriously. And it's the only hope I have for Spain, if I'm being honest. There's another right-wing party that's called Partido Popular, but in reality, they're just rhinos and they are going to do whatever. They change their dialogue every time they speak to some people. Like, they're not really for the people. So the only hope that we have is the Vox party. All the other parties are very happy with this invasion, and they excuse themselves as we have to be humanitarian, we have to be good people, we have to welcome everyone, but they forget about the Spanish people, and we should be put first.
Well, I'll tell you that we've actually done an episode of this very program from Vox, the party headquarters there in Madrid, and we met with Santiago Abascal. This was in 2024, and we had incredible, by the way, great dinner together. With the food was unbelievable. And of course, Tanya, and she really loved it and said she wants to come back as soon as possible. And Vox, to me, it feels like, if MAGA is the America First, movement in America, Vox is the MAGA of Spain.
Absolutely. And they have been very much demonized by the mainstream media. But I feel like now everyone is waking up, and even people who used to vote for the left are going to vote for Vox because it is the only option that we have. It is the only party that cares about the Spanish people, and it's the only party that's willing to send them back. Because at the end of the day, what we all want right now, all the Spaniards, we want to send them back.
Spain has had a history in the past where Spain was conquered by the Muslim Caliphate for almost 1,000 years. And it was only because of the courage and the bravery of the Spanish people by putting God first, by putting Christ first, as you do so well in Spain, where you have the largest cross in the world that I have visited in the Valley of the Fallen, which needs to be protected and preserved. You were able to do so once in the past. And I certainly believe, just like 1492, that Spain can do it again. Ada Yuch, where can people go to follow you?
They can follow me on Ada Yuch in Instagram and on X. And I have to say that I really hope we learn from history, and we cannot allow it to repeat itself.
No, we cannot allow it. It needs to be saved. The West, the Christian West, must always be defended. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.